a world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Friday the 3rd of July. And on this 4th of July weekend, we're going to talk about the fact that we need to declare our own independence. I'm not talking about grabbing a gun and going to fight Washington. I'm talking about declaring your independence and acting as G. Edward Griffin pointed out once. He said, we need to act collectively for our individual liberty. That's what the founders of this country did, wasn't it? They did not create a government, but in a sense, we can still and must do that in one way locally as well. We've got a couple of great interviews today with a couple of people who can help you with that. We've got Jack Lawson with Civil Defense Manual. How do you organize your neighbors for your mutual defense and to help each other during times of disaster? And also we have John Richardson, who's going to be talking about your medical defense. How do you defend yourself against these corporations and government entities that are designed to poison your food and your body? And whenever we have this government-corporate alliance that starts to come after us, how do we get away from it? Well, we create voluntary associations, don't we? Things like a raw milk club or something else like that. And so in a sense, we're going to talk about having the knowledge to do that and the ability to do that. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, joining us now is Jack Lawson, who you know from Civil Defense Manual, volumes 1 and 2, that I've got right here on the desk. As I pointed out earlier this week, he's got a big sale coming up. There's a lot of information in these things. They're very hefty, and he's got a big discount right now. It's going to be 45% off. I'll let Jack tell you a little bit about that. But again, you can find all this stuff at jacklawsonbooks.com. Civil Defense Manual, volumes 1 and 2. Thank you for joining us, Jack.
Thank you, Dave. It's always good to hear that golden orator's voice.
Well, you're kind.
You've got a very resonant, deep, beautiful voice. I wish I had one like it.
Well, thank you. But yeah, we've talked many times. We've talked about all the different things that you've done, and you've had a lot of military experience. You've had a lot of experience in areas where there was civil war in Africa and other places like that. But it's not just based on your own experience, which is extensive in so many different areas, but you've got a lot of contributing authors in here as well. Let's talk a little bit about them and what their areas of expertise are and why you put them in the book.
David, first, I'd like to say this. For the readers that are not aware of my background, I was in the United States Air Force. I was a missile electronics specialist that got shanghaied because I was the new guy, and I had the most electronics experience of anybody in my squadron to arm and disarm the W-40 thermonuclear warhead. I did that for some 14 months. I got irradiated in the process. I won't go into that. You wouldn't believe what happened to me and my kids, but I've been awarded that by the Veterans Administration. Then after the United States Air Force, I ended up in Africa, and I was in a Foreign Legion anti-terrorist unit. Mm-hmm. Now, we were airborne trained, we parachuted, and we were taken in by helicopter. We were a rapid response unit internally in this country and externally in the communist terrorist camps that were bordering the country. And inside, we'd actually go in and do our best to exterminate the animals that were running that.
And that was in what was then Rhodesia, is now Zimbabwe, right?
Yes, yes. And I wouldn't even call them animals. They were subhumans. What they did to their own tribal people was unbelievable. Anyway, that aside, I'm trying to get in. We're at a milestone in this country. We're at the 250-year mark. If people go to jacklawsonbooks.substack.com and read the article put out last Friday and the second part of it by Sir John Glubb called The Fate of Empires and the Search for Survival, you will see why 250 years is a milestone. There have been 13 empires in recorded man's history. And of those 13 empires, only one lasted over 250 years.
Mm.
That was the Mameluke or the Egyptian Empire that lasted 267 years. The point being, the very same things that everybody's concerned about, upset with in this country happened to these empires, be it 5,000 years ago or what. They had
Hmm.
the same issues. They had foreign immigration, and Glubb went in depth and explained why this destroyed the empire. They had financial problems, they had endless money printing, they had fraud, corruption, sexual deviancy, and a movement away from religions.
I'm glad we
So,
don't have that
what?
here in America.
Yeah,
We'd be in
yeah,
big trouble if we had all that stuff, right?
yeah. It was amazing that the same things that took down Britain, uh, ending about 1947, and have taken down the Arab Empire,
Hmm.
are the same things that are in the process of destroying the fabric of this country. Now, the bottom line of the whole thing is this. When he wrote this, Sir John Glubb, and I've talked to his grandson, uh, he wrote this pointing a finger at America. Wrote it in 1960.
Mm.
That's some 65 years ago. I'll have the second part out this Friday, but it's quite interesting. Going back to the book, now I want
Well,
people to know I
before we
did.
move away from that, Jack, I'll just say, I've talked many, many times about the fourth turning, which is,
Oh, yeah.
Strauss and Howe, who gave us the term millennial. And they've seen a cycle of major, major changes in every society going back 500 years and on about a 80-year cycle. And so we've got all these different things that are lining up. You've got this usual fourth turning, which is a big deal. Prior to this, we had Great Depression, World War II. We had prior to that, the fourth turning was the Civil War. Prior to that, the American Revolution. So here we are again. And yet there's also these other things that are lining up. It's like the perfect storm,
It is.
in terms of the anniversary of an empire and all the rest of the stuff. All of these things are coming together. That's why, one of the key jobs that we have in terms of trying to help people is to get them to understand the times that we live in and, what is coming. It's like a early storm warning that we're trying to give people. And you've got a lot of preparation experience with this because you've been through a lot of storms in life, as you pointed out.
Yes, you've got to live through them to see the reality and feel the reality of them.
Hmm.
But it starts to make people look off center. My thought is I'm concerned about some type of drone attack on events. I'm concerned with possibly somebody setting off tactical nuclear warhead. Everybody said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." Yeah,
Hmm.
they said
Hmm.
that 3 years ago and whatever. But the point being, you start to think and you see the reality of the way humanity is, and it's very difficult to live a peaceful nuclear family life like I was brought up and born and raised in.
Hmm. That's right. Yeah. And, it's not even a theory anymore. I mean, I've played clips of Jonathan Pollard saying, we got to get over this idea in the West that we shouldn't use nuclear weapons. It's just another tool that we have in our toolkit, Basically, he didn't use that exact phrase, but that's what he's saying, So we got to get over that. And we need to be willing to do whatever it takes to get whatever we want. That's a very concerning thing. And, just in the last week or so, last week we had, I think over the weekend, there was a major drone attack from Ukraine. I think it was something like 660 drones that they shot into Russia. Russia got down the majority of them, but they still did a tremendous amount of damage. And so you got people in Russia fighting at gas stations. And this is a country that's got a wealth of oil, but they take out the refineries. And this is what is happening. I mean, they have all this oil and so forth, but they've had the infrastructure destroyed. And so it is a very, very vulnerable situation that we're all living in. The drone warfare and these autonomous weapons that are there are going to be a game changer. And it is something that is going to change everything, both for military as well as civilian uncertainty. It's a real change that's coming.
It is. In fact, we just mentioned Matt Bracken. I was talking to him on the phone, and he says, "Jack," he said, "what we went through the battlefield we fought on is no longer there. The infantry's dead.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
couple of guys have said this, but I talked to Matt, and he said uh, some of the videos he's watched, it's just an absolute different battleground.
That's right. I've seen
There are no front lines.
articles saying, when they send these soldiers out, they've got like a 20-minute life expectancy, and the horrific stuff that we've seen, because you see these drones and they've got a video camera on them. So it's like you're inside the drone and you're watching this thing as it's chasing this guy down. It looks like a horrific dystopian sci-fi film.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's got to have an effect on the people that are guiding those, just like the telescopic picture of somebody that you shot stays with you forever. These have got to be staying with these people too.
Yeah, can't you imagine? You're looking
unless they're off center, psychopath.
That's right.
But
anyway, afterwards, because you can't. I mean, you're flying this thing in, and you're looking at this. It's so disturbing to look at this when you're not the one who's doing the killing. You're not flying the drone, and you can imagine how that's going to burn into their memory. And how they're going to see that on repeat all the time.
No, a lot of the stuff surfaces later on in life, too. You're driving on the road, and all of a sudden, there's a picture in your mind, and it just comes out of nowhere. It's unwanted, but you see it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what people go through. But going back to Matt Bracken, he's one of the people. I do not know everything. I don't want people to think that I'm some know-it-all, and I've lived a lot of this. I know an awful lot more about survival than most people, but I don't know some things, and I've brought experts into this book. Matt Bracken's one of them. He's a former Navy SEAL officer. I consider him one of the most brilliant people I've ever talked to. He can analyze and paint a picture with words of situations that are hard for most people to understand. And
he's got a great series of fiction books as well, doesn't he?
Yes, and they first opened my eyes. I remember he sent me. I bought his first, what he calls a trilogy: Enemies, Foreign and Domestic. And I can't remember. I've got them here somewhere in my bookshelf. But anyway, I bought these 3 books, and they're about 400 pages apiece. I remember I started reading those when I came home from work, and I got to the point to where my wife says, "If you don't stop reading that book," he said, I'm going to go. And
so his books were so,
that one made me turn the pages faster. Anyway, I just couldn't get away from him. I'd read, I'd maybe sleep 6 hours a night, but I read all 3 books in a week, and that's hard for me to do because I'm dyslexic. But the bottom line is my wife and I finally made peace over it, and life went on. But
so you didn't have to turn a new page there in your relationship.
No.
That's good.
No.
That's
I
good.
love my wife so much. I married her twice. I actually did. We got divorced for 6 years. Been married for 47, and mostly she's a good woman. She's my runway model from a department store, a high-end lady department store in Africa, and she used to be a model over there. And she's a very good woman. Great kids from her.
That's great.
Anyway,
my wife is
Matt,
a model wife as well. She
good for you, Karen.
Yeah, I would hold Karen up as an example for anybody as a great model for a wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
anyway. Matt wrote. Matt was a Navy SEAL officer. He deployed. He was in the Middle East for probably 3 years. Did a lot of adventures into the heartland of Islam, and that was treating us like an enemy. Matt wrote a couple of things. One of the best things I've read that he wrote was the CW2. CW stands for Civil War. 2 stands for the number of the war. And he paints a picture of what will happen if CW2 breaks out. But he also drew a picture with words of what how people can look at a cube that he's designed. It's a six-pointed, it's got six corners on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it will give you an idea of where you live by ethnic and racial and economic makeup of the people around you, how many possible problems you're going to have.
Hmm.
It actually will locate your danger zone if it's a danger zone.
Hmm.
And I thought that was brilliant. Well, I put that in one chapter,
Mm-hmm.
but then he wrote an article on night fighting, not with all these expensive optics like the military gets, without optics, how to do night fighting around your area by knowing your area. They were great articles. In addition to Matt, I have a guy by the name of Jerry Emanuelson, who probably is one of the foremost experts on what is a threat to people more than they realize, and that's an EMP, electromagnetic magnetic pulse event.
Yes.
This is something people think is fantasy. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
I know guys inside military defense testing labs that I've communicated with them, and they use it to test the hardiness of electronics.
Yeah.
In addition to
a couple of years ago, let me interject here. A couple of years ago, Gary Haven, who started the franchise Curves, and he is a billionaire, he put together a movie just to try to raise awareness of that. And he went to InfoWars, and he had Alex in it. They had some clips of me doing news broadcasts or something like that in it. But that's what it was all about. And when you look at what Jonathan Pollard, who's out there, this guy that was this traitor to America, and he's out there saying, we need to get over this idea we don't use nuclear weapons. That's the first thing he goes to. He said, we need to start off by just doing an EMP over Iran and then go in, whatever it takes, nuclear weapons, everything. But start out with the EMP. That's the key thing, to make sure that you've shut down electronics.
Well, I know somewhat about Jason Pollard. He's a Christian hater, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, he was a traitor to this country.
That's right.
Giving information to the Israelis. He is a folk hero in Israel. They think of him as probably the closest thing to Paul Revere.
Yeah.
I don't personally like the guy. I've listened to him. I think he's arrogant, condescending, but he's a total fraud when it comes to not using nuclear weapons. He's an advocate of it now that he's out of prison. I don't know how he got released from prison, but he did.
Yeah.
Well, I know how. He got through the Jewish lobby.
That's right.
Anyway, in addition,
and of course, he didn't just betray us for Israel. I mean, he was selling this to other places as well. But then, of course, the stuff that he gave to Israel, they turned around and used it against us with Russia, so they could get some relaxation on people they wanted to get out of Russia that were Jewish. So yeah, he's not a principled lover of Israel necessarily. He's your typical spy, I think, this guy, but he really is reprehensible. Yeah.
Yeah. My half my family's Jewish, but they're real Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunt just moved to Israel from South Africa, and I can't blame her for getting out of that place. It's absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
And she moved to Israel, and she had to sign a document disavowing Christianity.
Really?
I don't understand why these Christian churches are so far
I don't either
behind the Israelis, because it's been proven and it's known they don't like Christians. But I don't like to get into that politics now.
Yeah.
Another guy I've got in my book is the guy that runs Forward Observer, Matt. Incredibly in-depth insight to problems that are going on. I subscribe to it. It cost me I think $99 a year, but I subscribe to it, and it gives a real in-depth analysis of things that are going on. I consider it invaluable. In addition to that, it shows all the hot spots of protests around the country. and you get down to the very address and where they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go to the big city, I consult that. I want to stay away from those areas
Mm-hmm.
because I can only imagine what would happen if I got into one of them.
Yeah.
And
So, what
I
did he
just
contribute to Civil Defense Manual? What was his contribution?
he wrote the entire chapter on intelligence gathering.
Mm.
People don't think of this. They think of having a gun going to their front door if chaos comes about the country. That does very little. Number one, if you haven't got somebody with you, you're going to be overwhelmed. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
have your neighborhood organized, you're going to be overwhelmed. If you have your neighborhood organized and you don't have any idea what's around you, as far as uh, police and people that are diametrically opposed to your thought, you got a problem.
Yeah.
So, in other words, it's like you're a blind man trying to shoot at a target. You don't know. You don't even know the target's there.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt the wrote the entire chapter for um, on intelligence gathering in your local area, your state, and trying to maintain through communications another window to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have NC Bush, NC Scout, also known by the name of Brushbeater, runs uh, a, a blog that I read daily also. It's called American Partisan.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote the entire chapter on communications. He was a forward observer in Afghanistan. He's probably been shot at more times than I have. But he was one of like two guys that would go out as a forward observer. Very, very dangerous.
Wow.
And he
And see,
is
that's
an
what I like about your books. I mean, typically when we think about preparing for stuff, we think about, well, we're gonna, get food, water, we got to take care of medicine, things like that. But you're looking at the bigger picture, and you're looking at the dynamics of people and different people groups, and how to put these things together, as well as the overall dynamics that are happening within the society, like you're talking about these last two people. The one guy, he's talking about intelligence gathering, the other one talking about communications. What is the big picture? And that's, of course, going to be one of the key things when everything gets really dodgy. It's going to be hard to find out what's going on.
Yeah, that's true. And like my group, we have military encrypted radios. Nobody can listen to us. The NSA, I suppose, could break
Mm-hmm.
the encryption code, but we're not concerned about that. But we've got the former communications director of a very large county in the United States, and he just happened to buy the house across the street from me. And he's a great guy. And I'll just tell you this.
That's great.
These people that think communism is the answer to things should sit down and have a discussion with him. He came from Cuba.
Oh,
His
yeah.
father was a professor, refused to teach uh, communism, and they put him in hard labor. Terrible, terrible. Damn near died.
Mm.
In sugarcane, cutting sugarcane year round, 18 hours a day.
Wow.
And when Castro first took over, there was still a corruption level in people. So they ended up paying to get his father taken out by boat. And his father, to the day he died, just hated communists with a passion.
Yeah, that was one of the things growing
And
up in Florida. I knew so many kids my age who had parents who had gotten out of Cuba, and boy, did they hate Castro in Cuba.
yeah,
the
you listen to
communists that
the
were there.
stories.
Yeah,
You listen to the stories these people tell.
yeah.
It's terrible.
Oh,
All
yeah.
they've done is replaced one corrupt leadership with another corrupt leadership.
Mhm.
That's communism. The only
Mhm.
problem is socialism is communism without the gun barrel stuck up your nose. And
Not
the
yet.
other thing,
That's coming, though.
yeah,
That's the next stage.
yeah. They'll be using our guns if they try to take them away, but they're going to be getting different parts of the gun if they try to take them away from North America. You're going to
That's
get
right.
a lot of projectiles in there, and they won't be quite so enthusiastic after that.
That's
And I've
right.
often said if there's ever somebody that's stage 4 cancer that feels they're at the end, they were a deer hunter, and they have these protests with the communists, shoot a couple of them, and I'll tell you, they won't be quite so eager to come out the next day and protest. And that's what it gets down to. It's past the point of negotiating, past the point of reason. It's just that these people are in this illusionary thing. Anyway, we have a communication set up, and you have to have that. It's critical. It's critical if you're going to have any kind of group in your neighborhood. I've got one of my, not one of my favorite woman. My wife has got recipes for something called biltong, Biltong. It's a South African dried meat. It's incredibly good. It's got a long shelf life. I've got recipes for pemmican in there.
That's right.
Pemmican is northern, around the Canadian border, mostly Cree Indians, and it's fat, it's meat, and it's usually some type of berry, and it's pounded until it's dry, and it's pounded into a powder. Then it's mixed together with fat, and I've made it in cupcake pans, and the stuff will last forever. And the Indians kept this. That was their survival ration during the blizzards where they couldn't fish. That's what they lived on. It's completely got every protein, carbohydrate, vitamin you need. On top, yeah, it's good tasting too. If you get the right berries, I just stuff. Anyway, the other thing is we put some basic recipes like that in. We tell people where to go get salt. As innocuous and as common as that sounds, salt is going to be one thing that's going to be worth its weight in gold. The word salary comes from salt.
That's right.
They used to pay Roman soldiers in salt. And it becomes a critical necessity when you don't have it. Then you realize how important it is.
And that's the thing for Americans. I mean, we've just been so spoiled with things and so comfortable in our living. We can't even imagine a situation where salt would be valuable, but you need to have it. And we just take it for granted that we have all of these different things all the time.
Yeah. Do you know who Colonel Douglas McGregor is?
Oh, yeah.
Our country.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've played a lot of his stuff, yes.
I just love to listen to that guy. He's probably one of the most sane people I've listened to.
Absolutely. And he told us the truth about what was happening with Iran from day one.
Yeah, from day one.
He and Scott Ritter.
And Ukraine.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, they've been spot on with all this stuff, where it's going and what is happening, and we've gotten nothing but lies and spin from the Pentagon and the administration.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. The first thing they should do in a war is take all the rank off of the officers from the highest down to about colonel, and give them a weapon and put them out in the fields.
Yeah.
The officers I served under, I would go anywhere with these guys. They'd be the first guy to run down the path. I can remember a terrorist threw a hand grenade up the side of a hill and it rolled down. And I didn't even know it. There was so much gunfire and explosions going off, but it landed in a cow path. I was standing right next to it, and my commanding officer said, "Let's go," and we went roaring on his tail, and the thing went off right after us. And I thought I cut my finger, but I got a piece of fine Chinese shrapnel in my left index finger.
Wow.
I remember I used to dig around. I thought I had what's called a vakabiki bush thorn in it. And it was a piece of metal. Well, I got nothing out of there and it healed eventually, but I've got an x-ray of it. Anyway, you laugh about this stuff after it's over. It's not quite so funny when you're doing it, though.
I bet.
But officers are generally the worst thing that can happen to an Army or a Navy or Marine Corps, Air Force. They lose reality. They're just like policemen. I was on a police board. The cops would always say they ought to grab him out of management and stick him out in the field again. They forget what they went through and what common Joe out there's got to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got all these officers telling these stories, and the biggest thing they'll do is tell any story that'll get them promoted or keep them in good light of the person that they're reporting to.
Mm-hmm.
And McGregor doesn't do that.
That's right.
McGregor was the advisor to the Defense Department. He's
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of contact. So
And yet he's not trying to preserve that, by putting
no,
spin or lies on things. He'll tell it to you straight. And
I think
you
he's
listen
I
to that,
think he's
and
a real patriot.
yeah, you listen to that
Our
stuff, and you
country,
go, boy,
our
they got to really be have the knives
uh,
out for this guy because he's telling it to us like it is. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Pulled the knife out. That's what you get a knife pulled on you for now. But McGregor, I think, is a true patriot.
I do.
He's
Yeah.
a fantastic author. Guy's worth a lot of money. He's made a lot of money in publishing books and whatnot, but he gives an unvarnished picture of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible to listen to him and the different angles because he's literally written some books on strategy. He's got a three-dimensional chess playing mind.
Mm-hmm.
I love to listen to he's one of the few guys I listen to because he tells you just what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a prophet, I'd say, but he analyzes. And by his knowledge of strategy, he comes up with possibilities. Usually doesn't miss the mark.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Now, in your book, again, like I said, some of the most important things are advice on the mental state of people, advice on group dynamics and organization, advice on leadership versus psychopaths. Talk a little bit about that.
That's one of the dangers. As I said earlier, you got a nest of people in Washington, D.C., and the political and bureaucratic. You've got a nest of them wherever their corporation is. I believe that the psychopath has a unique ability to be brutal enough without showing that he is.
Mm-hmm.
They're a chameleon, and they rise to the top.
Yeah.
So if you're organizing a group of people, even a family members want to come to someone's house because people aren't going to be knocking on the door asking if you've got anything to eat. They might initially. They'll be kicking your door down.
Mm-hmm.
The amazing thing is virtually every American's got a firearm, but I'll tell you, there's probably 2% of them have any amount of stored water, which will be the
Mm-hmm.
first thing. Second thing will be that grocery list that they were going to get that they never got. Will leave them with about 7 or 8 days of food, and probably eat. Well, I don't know if they'll be eating cake batter mix because I don't think anybody bakes anymore. They order their whole meals from some of these companies,
Yeah, if
and
it hits the fan, we just call up Uber Eats and we're fine, right?
yeah, yeah,
We don't even
Uber
have to
Eats,
drive
and
to get
then
the food. Yeah.
yeah, and then they've got these companies that ship this food. Went to my daughter's refrigerator one day when she lived in Las Vegas, and her husband, an attorney, they're working all the time. And I said to her, I said, "What do you got to eat, Megan?" And she said, "Oh, look in the refrigerator." So I look in the refrigerator. It's all takeout food leftovers. Oh, I said, "There's some stuff in here." Well, she said, "Look in the pantry too." So I went in the pantry. I came out and I said, "Megan, you've got more paper towels. You got more uh, garbage bags than you got food in this house." And I was blown away. So I told her husband when he came home, I said, "Kirk, come on, I'm going to buy a couple $100 worth of food. Let's go to Costco." "Well, for what?" And I said, "For what?" I said, you guys haven't even got a week's worth of food in your house. You have no okay. I said, "I'm going to buy some beans and rice." "No, no, no, we don't need it." "Okay. All right." Well, I finally hammered on him enough but I had to buy it.
Hmm.
Uh, they're worth millions, but I had to buy it. I bought him a 3 months uh, s- food supply,
That's
and
great. Well, the first time
Anyway,
I talked to you, Jack, and it was before all the lockdown stuff and everything happened in 2020, and you were talking about what a fragile supply chain we have. Because we've got the just-in-time thing and delivery, and so you've got multiple stages for everything before you even have the final stage of delivery. And so there's all these links of transportation that are in the middle of everything, and it's a distributed system. And of course, what Trump has done in terms of what he did in 2020, I really harped on that because immediately by locking down everything, he broke all these different supply chains. It was all kinds of crazy stuff. People destroying massive amounts of food at the farms while you had empty shelves. You couldn't get toilet paper because it was in the wrong format, and on and on. And so once the government gets in with a ham-fisted approach, and of course, the same thing happened again with tariffs because he just arbitrarily draws a line at some point and says, okay, at this point, we're going to just seal everything off. And it's like, yeah, but you realize that we don't have the supplies inside this perimeter that you've set up. We don't have the things we need. They've got to come across that perimeter. He doesn't think about that. And so many people don't think about that in terms of how vulnerable, how fragile our supply chain was or is. And that was the first thing you talked about when I first talked to you.
it's gone beyond fragile now. It's and I think this Strait of Hormuz has just barely covered the problems that we're having from this. I put an article up by an analyst about a month ago called, it's on my Substack, jacklawsonbooks.substack.com, called "The Pain is Locked In." This guy is a systems analyst, and he went through this whole thing and showed why this is going to continue to drive prices up. And there's a possibility there will be shortages, and there's a possibility there may be some things that disappear. There are some things that have disappeared, I've noticed, from the grocery store. They get them in again, but the danger is when it disappears for the majority of people. I don't know what people will do here. I got a pretty good idea. But I think the worst part of the whole thing is our reliance on a water system that will not be delivered. We don't have the open wells we had 60, 70 years ago. We had an open well on our farm. People had open wells in town. We don't have that anymore. People have filled them up. Oh, they're a danger. Kids can fall down them. That's true. But people can't get water out of them if they're covered full of dirt, and this is what's going on. I've had an interesting discussion with water people. None of them would absolutely tell me an answer to this, David. But I finally cornered a guy who'd been working 35 years. He put one of these computer reading meters on my property because I had a problem with a leak and it cost me $1,800 in water. And this guy had a candid conversation with him. He's been with the water district for a long time. And I said, what are they going to do at first I asked him, how do you get your chemicals to treat the water? Do they come in by rail car? No, I said they come by pallet in huge containers on a truck. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, you guys have a lot of them? Yeah, I said, we got quite a bit. I said, what'll happen when those run out? What do you mean run out? I said, what if trucks can't run? What if the fuel shortage? I said, well, you bring them up by rail car now? We don't have any spur next to our treatment plant. I said, well, what do you guys do? He said, shut the water off. I said, what do you mean you shut the water off? Why would you shut the water off? He said, for two reasons. He said, it's against every state, county, local, federal law to put out contaminated water, number one. And number two, once you fill the pipe system with untreated water, it's virtually impossible to get it clean again. So I told him, I said, so you're telling me you're going to let some 92-year-old lady in July die of thirst? He said, look, it isn't up to me. But he said, I know what they're going to do. Wow. He said they've had discussions about this, but he won't tell me who to talk to. He starts.
It's kind of interesting, Jack. When we look at this, in a lot of ways, there's always a silver lining in some of this stuff. If we don't go out in the first wave of it. But when you look at what happened with the COVID vaccines, it woke a lot of people up to what was happening, the bigger picture of not just the COVID vaccines, but all vaccines, and even bigger than that, what's going on with the FDA, what's going on with the hospitals that are now become giant corporations and everything. So it woke up a lot of people. And I think a lot of people have already awakened about the water supply issues because of fluoride and a lot of other things that are being put into the water. So maybe, because of that, a lot of people have started building an independence away from the water system, or at least having
that's
some
good
way they can filter the water so they could go other places. If they can find even an open pond, if they've got a good gravity feed water filter, then they've already prepped for that just by prepping to keep some clean water instead of using the stuff that's officially treated by the government.
Understand one thing: any source of water, like a lake, river, pretty soon you're going to see a number of things. You're going to see people bathing in it. You're going to see people defecating in it, urinating in it. People are going to be dead floating from upriver, downriver. There will be people that die, not necessarily killed, drowned, killed from bad water. Most people haven't gone through bad water. I went through it in Africa. I had amoebic dysentery for 2 months. I had it when I went through parachute school. A doctor cured me of it, but it was horrendous. I met my wife at this time. I refused to eat around here. Here I am with a green beret on, in fatigues, and I've got a thin kitchen tablecloth stuffed full of toilet paper as a makeshift diaper. Now, it's a little embarrassing to be around her parents and not eating, but I was afraid to eat anything because you'd go right through you.
Well, just tell them it's another form of camouflage, right? It's green and brown.
Yeah. The doctor going through parachute school cured me of. I won't tell you the ghastly details, but it was horrible. Wow. People don't understand how important water is and how scarce it will become. But going back to things.
Before we leave water, let me just remind people again, because we always talk about this. That's an example chapter that you have available for free that people can see what you tell them about water, because it is so important. You put that information out there for free. And I think if people see the chapter that you wrote on water, it is so excellent as a sample of what is in the rest of the book. I think that'll be a real, that ought to seal the deal, I think, for people if they see that chapter on water.
So it's just something. I don't do this. I got money coming in every month. I don't do this because of money solely. I'm trying to be a patriot first and a business fool second. So I don't sell stuff for nothing. What I'm selling the book for now during July is pretty close to what my monthly per book cost is. And it's horrendously expensive to print these things. And other associated costs with it. But the point being this, I would like to try to get as many people to get their hands on this as possible.
Yes.
My marketing is very limited, but you know where I get a good share of my marketing in my surveys is people say from a friend. So people talk to each other, they read the book, and they start to see some of these things. And I try to give people a picture in the beginning of this book that disturbs their enjoyment of this blasé cookie cutter society we've got. That hey, let's go down to McDonald's 3 PM. I want to get a hamburger. Well, there aren't McDonald's in most parts of the world, and most people don't live that way. There are alternatives that you can keep yourself alive, and you don't have to have the stomach of a goat to eat these things. And I just try to cover as much of this as possible because God forbid being in a blue hive city if chaos comes. Now, sure, they'll have martial law through police, law enforcement, and probably National Guard or regular reserve or active duty troops. But
Yeah, we've kind of
That
seen how that works out, though, right?
yeah,
Go back and look at the
that
LA riots and what the
yeah,
Koreans had to do to protect their businesses and things like that.
yeah,
And we've seen it happen over and over again. They typically go in and circle the wagons around themselves. That's what
yeah, yes.
Gates did. Was it Daryl Gates? I think was the guy who was the LA police chief that really kind of kicked us off on this militarized police thing that is so pervasive now. And as he was going out there and getting the armored cars and everything, the first one to do it, creating the SWAT teams and everything, what did they do with all that stuff? They didn't use it to defend the city in general or to come after the people who are causing problems. They just circled the wagons around themselves.
Well, I can't answer how they do things. I know I could answer from what I was on one of the largest police boards in the country, and I just got so sick of the politics.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to argue with them, and let's put it this way: they were excited to get me on the board, but they were pretty excited to get me off the board too, because I had, and the officers liked me. They trusted me, and I railed against this machine that was running things. It was totally opportunistic, and people go from where uh, I was on this police board. The chiefs go into very high-paying jobs afterwards. It's just a structure that's set up in this country. But the bottom line is I don't know what's going to happen. It's anyone's guess.
Mm-hmm.
Read Matt Bracken's another great article he wrote. When the music stops, give you a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. You read his books, you get a better idea. You read the stories in my books, and I also interlace this book with stories to convey as much as I can and put a person into the mental state that they need to have to start employing methods in this book.
Yes, and that's the key thing.
I put everything. And another thing I'm getting extremely worried about, and I've been back and forth, but I was trained in nuclear weapons. I went through nuclear weapon training in the Air Force. I know what nuclear weapons can do. I'm no expert on them, but I know an awful lot more about them than most people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting closer and closer to some type of nuclear exchange. Now, they like to use a word called tactical nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
There is no tactical nuclear weapon. A nuclear weapon is a nuclear weapon is a nuclear weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is, once I start using them, these damn fool officers that are running things, I think people have got to back Trump. They forget quickly what we had at the end of the last administration. I think he's trying to straighten things out. I think he's getting huge pressures by the Israeli lobby, and the same people running the Ukraine show are running the Israeli show. That war in Ukraine has the potential to go nuclear.
Oh, yeah.
I have a chapter on my website in Substack that will tell people how to survive a nuclear exchange. It's very simple. It's really quite simple. You have the 7-10 rule, and you have the inverse square rule. And if you don't have to be a scientist or a person mathematically inclined to understand these. Very, very simple. If you read that chapter, you and your family within the maximum of a week would survive a nuclear exchange.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about that happening because these officers they're illusionists. They have no understanding of reality, and who knows where they go.
And I think all of the stuff that's happening with Iran, I think that it has made us a lot less secure in terms of nuclear stuff, because now they realize, and people throughout all these small countries throughout the world are realizing that, hey, we're very vulnerable to being attacked for any reason whatsoever, unless we got nuclear weapons. That's the only way that we can stave people off. And so I think it's going to create a massive escalation of this and proliferation of nuclear weapons.
You talked earlier about drones and change in warfare.
Mm-hmm.
The change and what will defeat us by a small country is something called ISR, India Sierra Romeo, ISR. It's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance.
Mm-hmm.
They are target using systems by using information to target and destroy just about anything within 1,000 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
Iran has shown us one thing: warfare's changed. These fool American officers, high ranking, are still in World War II
Yeah.
about landing on Tarawa Beach. And the entire concept has changed. Russia has mastered this. Um, Iran showed us that unless they nuke that entire country, it's they literally have defeated us.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what Trump's going through, the amount of pressure from everything that's going on in this country. And I personally think the guy is trying to do his best to sort things out. He's got huge pressures on him.
Yeah, he's got
And the bottom line
a
is,
lot of donors.
pardon?
Because you got a lot of donors who have invested in him heavily, and they want him to do what they tell him to do, and so
that is
basically doing
exactly what goes on with all of them.
Yeah,
I think
that's right.
90% of Congress has
Mm-hmm.
been corrupted, and Thomas Massey wasn't. But look, he's not there anymore.
That's right. That's why they got him out.
I call him Mr. No, and I love the guy.
Yeah.
I will always think he's one of the best politicians. He voted what his constituents wanted and what he thought was right.
And of course,
Marjorie Taylor Greene also.
We see people like that purged out of the system. We see that happening with law enforcement. We saw that throughout 2020. You had some people who spoke out against it and said, we don't have any legitimate law to force people to wear masks. I'm not going to arrest them or give them fines or anything. They got those people out. Same thing in the military. Yeah. You have a problem. You've got Christian principles, and you don't want to take this vaccine, or yes. You think that should be about informed consent. They're going to get you out because they want to have people.
Remember, we were all wrong. We were supposed to be rounded up and put in death camps.
Yeah,
because we wouldn't take the shot.
That's right.
I think everyone that said that's dead now.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law just passed away. She had both of her legs amputated. She got her citizenship just before she died, which was really nice because the Trump administration sent the immigration people directly to assisted living home and had a nice ceremony. She was crying about it, but the bottom line is this: is she believed, as a good British citizen would, what the government said, and she took all the shots and the boosters. And she probably died of clots in her heart. But
yes,
the bottom line is, that's still a prevalent thing. I don't know what Gates is doing. He's trying to destroy humanity or what? But
we just have psychopaths everywhere we look, don't we? It's just amazing.
Yeah,
they're stacked several levels high, and well, it's an excellent resource. It truly is, and it's a lot of experience from you and a lot of things that you've learned and a lot of wisdom to bring in people who, these are things that you know about, but because you're not the total expert, you brought in some other people who really are experts to talk about it. That is a part of the wisdom as well. And it is a very wise thing to get this book and to read it after you get it. I've had nothing but...
This is not a namby-pamby either. I have a lot of information there that I learned in commando school of tactics, and had this pounded in our head. Tactics and psychological operations, marksmanship, where to shoot somebody to incapacitate them, which you don't really do, where to shoot somebody to kill. And there's a lot of information in there that is how to set a kill zone up. It's not for the faint of heart. That's the part, if people want to read that and employ that, I suggest they know it. But it's the A to Z. If you're going to survive,
comprehensive and detailed, and it really is good. And typically it's about $100, and so right now you got 41% off, so people can pick it up for a little over,
for about $59. And I want to do that for the month of July. Like I say, don't do this. I try to be a business fool last, but I've got grandkids and children, and I want to see what we had for this great experiment in this country survive for more years than it would by Sir John Glubb's analysis.
Absolutely. Yeah. As my son was saying here, Lance is working with me, and he put up a thing. He said most countries, most empires have not survived their third, fourth turning. And that's what we're at right now. We're at our third, fourth turning. There was a fourth turning that created this country, and then there were two others after that, Civil War and the Great Depression, World War II. Now we're at the third one. And so the question is, do we survive? And a lot of people think that is a silly question to ask, but if you really look at what is happening in terms of financially, in terms of the respect for individual liberty and the rule of law, that is collapsing. And when that collapses, you really don't have much left.
No, that's correct. It's just they've twisted the Congress around by motion and court order and this and that. There's a Constitution, and that's it.
That's right.
And that's what we've got to try to stick to.
That's right. Well, Jack, thank you so much for joining us. And again, folks, it's a little over 40% off. It's a great deal. It's a lot of money saved on these excellent manuals about civil defense and about defense of your family. What do you do in terms of not just prepping and having ammunition or water or food or whatever, but how do you work with the people in your area? That is the key thing. And those are key insights that he has. And again, he's looking at it from, I would say, more of a systems overview in many of these places. When you talk about intelligence and communications, things that you don't typically see discussed in terms of preparation. Usually it's focused on the trees and not the forest that's there. He looks at the big picture as well as a lot of details in terms of specific things and easy ways for you to prepare in terms and economical ways for you to prepare. So thank you, Jack, for that resource. It's great. And again, through the month of July, 41% off. And people can find this at jacklawsonbooks.com. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you, David. And I'd like to wish you, Travis, Lance, Karen, a pleasant Fourth, and all of your listeners. That this is the greatest experiment in mankind that's lasted this long. So,
yeah, it is.
Anyway, happy Independence Day.
Thank you very much. I said earlier on the program, I said it's kind of a day of mourning for us because I look at this wonderful, such sadness when I look at what has happened to the excellent design we had for this country. And so it is really kind of a day of sadness for us, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Let's hope we can get it back on center. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack.
Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Hear news now at apsradionews.com or get the APS Radio app and never miss another story.
Joining us now is John Richardson. I've had John on several times, and I think, as many of you know, rncstore.com has a wealth of information as well as wonderful natural products that have a long and strong history behind them of helping people with their health. And so I highly recommend the products that they've got there. And John now has had some health issues over the last year, and he wanted to talk to us about that because there is something that is happening now, and I've seen several articles about this as I scan through all the websites that I look at to prepare the show. I've seen several articles about a massive rise in stomach cancer, even for young people, because they say they typically expect cancer as you get older because your body starts to weaken and fail, and we're all fighting it at some level or the other. And of course, John has some things that will help your body to fight that. But we've seen it happening with very young people, which is very unusual, just like the very young people are coming down with heart issues. And so what is behind this? And of course, we've also had something else that is out there at the same time, John, and that is the GLP-1 injections. I'm sure there's no connection in any of this stuff, just like they say there's no connection with the rise in autism and injecting kids 70 to 100 times, depending on what the current vaccine schedule is, and it's constantly increasing. But tell us a little bit about what you've been going through this last year.
Well, I had the same type of issue that other people have. When we get older, we start to have some colon issues. We have to really start taking care of ourselves. As I turned 60, I was trying to get in shape and do all those things and do all the right things, make the right choices. I try to make 80% of the right choices my whole life, but I did make a bad choice. And that bad choice was that I decided that I wanted to get rid of that extra 20 pounds because I was out speaking at events and things like that. And so I had a naturopathic doctor that told me that he had a natural GLP-1. What an oxymoron that is, David. I'm sorry to say. It's like saying, I don't know. It's there's a lot of things I could compare that to. But so I tried this supposedly natural version, which was semaglutide. And anybody that knows anything about it will laugh at me now. And please go ahead. Feel free to laugh at me. My good friend Brian Artis warned me many, many times to stay away from GLP-1s, but I thought this was something different because that's not my expertise, David. Mm-hmm. Many of us go through our lives. We have an expertise that we go to our friends that are really good at geopolitical stuff, or maybe they're good at, like G. Edward Griffin is really good at, the financial system. I go to him for advice about, that kind of things. But when it comes to, losing weight naturally, don't take advice from a doctor who's just looking at it, and I won't say his name, but looking at it like another way to make a profit on his patients. And so I took 5 injections of a GLP-1 called semaglutide. It in fact, stopped my appetite. But after I learned how it does it, I started to develop issues with my colon, and I didn't relate them because I've been taking B17, and everybody knows about the preventative nature of B17. G. Edward Griffin said it in his book, World Without Cancer. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to be foolish enough to take one of the COVID vaccines, and I shouldn't say foolish enough because some people took it in good faith. They believe
that's right.
Their doctors.
That's right. I don't criticize people for getting deceived. I blame the deceivers. And of course, there have been situations in our family as well where even after we start to look at the pharmaceutical industry, you get into a situation where because it's urgent and you got to make a quick decision or whatever, you trust some person and because they don't have good judgment or because maybe they've got motivations where they betray that trust, we can all get into that situation. So I don't blame the people who take it. I blame the people who are pushing it.
Yes. And that's exactly the situation here. And so, mm-hmm. and again, if I considered this doctor friend, he and I have not spoken. I thought I was going to run into him this couple weekends ago at an event that I normally saw him at. And so I just wanted to kind of off the record talk to him about it so that explain to him what happened to me. But in any case, I developed a blockage in my colon soon after. I started having pain in my colon. I stopped immediately. I just continued to lose weight. I was at 220 and I went right through 200 down. I got all the way down, David, believe it or not, down to 142 pounds. I was basically a walking skeleton. Yeah. And so I went into the emergency room at the hospital before I lost that much weight, but I went into the emergency room, not being able to keep food down, throwing up. And they told me, they did a CAT scan. They told me, John, you have a lesion, your stage 3 cancer, you have a what they call an apple core lesion. It's a squeezing down of the large intestines, and you're not going to be able to eat. So the advice, the short story is the advice of 15 second opinions at this hospital, Honor Health Hospital in Arizona, was to remove half of my colon and 15 lymph nodes and have it sent off to be tested to see if indeed it was cancer. Now, I don't have any verification whether it was actual cancer or just this destruction of my colon like happens from GLP-1s. The fact is I just went right into using my dad's full protocol because I've always eaten apricot seeds kind of like as a regular thing. But when you add these outside drugs like a vaccine, like a COVID vaccine or GLP-1s, or you add all these additional poisons, you're fighting Mother Nature. And so I working 12-hour days, doing 20 podcasts a week, I had already stress on my system. So this just increased it. And so the doctors, they didn't want to let me leave the hospital, David. They were trying to coerce me into doing emergency surgery within 48 hours. And so I had to negotiate with the doctor and get released on my own recognizance. He told me that if he signed a document saying I was going against the medical advice, I would lose all my insurance coverage. He didn't end up actually signing that paper. He was originally saying he was going to do that. He didn't end up doing that. He kind of just released me, on my own good behavior. But he did say that, John, if you can fix this naturally, then the doctor that does it with you will become a trillionaire.
No, actually, you'll probably lose their license.
Exactly.
If they tell anybody about it. That's right.
Exactly. So I did go to several different doctors. Dr. Brian Artis I talked to Dr. John Murphy in Tempe, Arizona, who's been treating cancer as an MD naturally, integratively for 26 years using my dad's protocol in many cases. So, and Dr. Wolf, the doc of detox, Daryl Wolf, if he sees this, I got to make sure I mention him. He walked me through this. He's been doing non-surgical colon issues for 40 years. And so he says 95% of the surgeries they recommend are just not appropriate. They're recommended for financial reasons. The system is broken, David. And so here I am a year later after the last since basically December, doing my dad's protocol with eating 80% vegetables, liquid diet as much as possible, the B17 injections, the enzymes, the B15, ozone, coffee enemas. I am now back up to 180, feeling healthier than I did before. And I'm here I am with a cautionary tale. And I just want people to hear that if you're not prepared to go into the medical system, David, what I really want people to hear is that we have to become our biggest advocate. You think that you're going into a medical system that has got your best interests at heart. And unfortunately, the entire system is financially motivated. So many of the surgeries that they're recommending, most of the surgeries they recommend are unnecessary. And I know people are going, well, what are you talking about, John? These doctors have gone to medical school for 10 years. They've had 20 years of doing surgeries. And yes, our system is set up that if something's going wrong, we want to cut it out. If it's got cancer, we want to burn it out with chemotherapy. We want to radiate it out, with radiation. And these things do not improve our health. And so people need to learn about they need to learn about the system before they get thrown into it, because the emergency system that I went into is just a gateway into getting the standard procedures. And so I had to fight. And had I not had 30 or 40 years of background, I would have lost that battle. As 5 people got their colons removed on the Wednesday that I was scheduled for emergency surgery.
Wow.
Each one of those surgeries are $250,000. Wow. So that one hospital in that one city in Arizona made $1.25 million in surgery fees in that one day.
Wow.
I thankfully avoided it, even though they said, good news, John, your insurance is going to cover all but $50,000. Even though I avoided it. And that's the great news. you're going to cost you $50,000 out of your savings account, and we're going to take off half your colon and your lymph nodes, and you're going to be on a colostomy bag. And here's the other good news, John. We're going to get you to 70.
Wow.
So, these are the things, the scare tactics they use, the Gestapo tactics that the system uses. And so the system is broken, and that's what I want people to know. And I know that I'm going to create some enemies from people that are watching this that are in the medical field. But on the other hand, most of them are even learning I'm running into nurses and doctors all over the place that used to be part of the system that are saying, I've had enough. I'm giving up my license. I'm going to move into naturopathy and natural answers to disease because it works so much better, and I'm not costing people years off their life.
There's this unholy trinity of these corporations that are taking over the hospitals, the insurance companies, and the government. And I guess we could also throw in the pharmaceutical companies in there as well. But, it's all part of the mix. And, from my own personal situation when I had heart issues, there's always this, you got to do it now. You got to do it right away. And, so they're always rushing it, making it an emergency. And so I dodged some of those bullets. I mean, I come into it, I'm pretty cynical about the medical industry. And yet still, as I went into it, they offer some of these things that they offer. One of them, it was a real clue because the drug was so expensive, Eliquis. They wanted me to take this anti-blood clot medicine because I've got AFib, and that can create blood clots. And so I looked at that, and it's like, why is that so expensive? And I see it's by Pfizer, and it's like, oh, now I know. And so I started looking at some of the side effects of that, and it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to go with some natural ways to control blood pressure. But then I also have, or blood clots, I should say, but also have high blood pressure. And I have an aneurysm that it's pretty large, that's aortic. And so I looked at that and I thought, well, I really should, I'm looking at this other medication that they're prescribing. It's pretty commonly taken, metoprolol. And I'm looking at that and it's like, well, okay, tiredness, and there's several different things. None of them were like really life-threatening altogether. I thought, well, let me take that. But then it started making me really tired and had some other issues with it. And I was getting fluid starting to accumulate in one leg, which I thought was really strange. So I started looking at it and I thought, I'm just going to get off of this. I'm going to gradually, I'm just going to stop it, see what happens to my blood pressure. Well, my blood pressure went really high. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to get on it. Then I kept doing more research, and I found that it's one of these things where you can't just stop it right away because your body gets dependent on it. And so you have to gradually phase it out, which I'm doing the process of doing it. But already just phasing it out and cutting it down to 1/2 dosage, I already feel much, much better. And so when you look at these things, there's all these hidden things, and they really are hidden. You really got to dig to find this stuff. They don't come right out and say it anywhere. And a lot of these symptoms that are there are not even in some of the websites that are what I guess we could say skeptical of the pharmaceutical industry. So you've got to dig to find these things. And then what you find out is that they can put you on this, and all of a sudden now your body gets hooked on it, and it takes you a while to get off of it, which is really kind of cynical, isn't it?
That's exactly the whole system. There's a drug called Latruda that people get cancer patients on, and they see some results. Then they have these side effects. Mm-hmm. But then the insurance runs out. Let's say somebody has a $5 million, $1 million insurance policy, and then you see what the underlying single shot cost for Latruda. And this is going to shock people that don't look at their insurance bills. A single shot of Latruda, which is a cancer drug that's shown some promise, $85,000 per injection, David.
Wow.
Yeah. And you think about that. And so
one injection.
I met a gentleman on this last trip who was having success doing this. He was in his 80s, and he had now reached the end of his insurance, and so his family was scrambling. How do we continue to do this without this insurance coverage? So they had to sell their businesses. They had to sell their truck stops. They had to sell this museums they had. And I was a very heartbreaking story. I ended up giving him a copy of Ed Griffin's book, World Without Cancer, and I gave him I gave him our B17, B15, and enzymes. Not because he was broke. It was obviously a very wealthy man. Mm-hmm. They were moving out all these beautiful vehicles out of his museum. But I just thought, God had me stop here in the middle of the desert in New Mexico, and I run in to see this museum, and here's a guy with cancer. Wow. And they told me the story of how they were they had to pay $85,000 per injection of Latruda. I mean, when you're hooked on it, David, and it feels like it's doing something good, you'll do anything. And that's the way the system is. But the natural answers, they'll lie to the public, and anybody listening to this first time hearing about Laetrile, if they do this, the research or apricot seeds, they'll say, oh, those are poisonous. Don't take those. Oh, don't take those when you're doing chemotherapy. But it's exactly the opposite. When you are going through these therapies, if you decide to do chemo and radiation and surgery, the thing you need to do is make sure your immune system is up to snuff. You need to make sure that you have these natural things that can help you get through it. Latruda,
just look at what they did to Laetrile and to B17. They did that all again with ivermectin. And yet, because of the pressure that they were giving everybody, because they went over the top with all this stuff and really, jumped the shark with this, it woke a lot of people up to the tactics of the pharmaceutical companies and the FDA, especially when they came after ivermectin. It's for horses, y'all. Come on, don't take that stuff. And yet, some people were doing it out of desperation, and they were getting fantastic results. And now we're seeing one thing after the other that ivermectin is very helpful for. It truly is amazing that so many people, that's the silver lining of this cloud of the pandemic and the lockdown, the rest of the stuff. It woke a lot of people up to a system that has been corrupt for a very long time. It just got so arrogant in its corruption that people could see it.
Yeah, that's ivermectin is a perfect example of a drug that's been approved for 40 years, and it had no side effects, no ill effects. They've never reported any deaths or anything like that. And all of a sudden now it's a horse medicine, and it destroys your liver. And if you get too much, you got to be careful. Every single chemotherapeutic drug that they tell people to take when they have cancer is definitely damaging. The whole design of it is to destroy the cancer before you destroy all your healthy cells. But the problem is it destroys 96% of the healthy cells and only attacks 4% of the cancer cells. That's documented and proven. Wow. And the last 50 years, David, they haven't improved. The normal oncology department at your local hospital hasn't improved their techniques, even though they say we have cutting edge technology with Latruda or all these other things. They're all about drugs that have massive side effects, that have some effectiveness in some cases, but more often than not, they destroy the immune system. And now the person comes up with another disease. They didn't die of cancer. They died of liver disease or kidney failure or lung because of the destruction of the immune system that is caused by these chemotherapeutic agents. And so, again, cautionary tale, that's what they're going to offer you when you go in. And even if you and your family decide that's the avenue you want to go, you want to get your immune system back to as good as God intended to be and give the proper nutrition to your system. That's a bottom line.
Absolutely right. Yeah, when you talk about cutting edge treatment, we know what that usually means, right, in the oncology department. But when you talk about destroying your immune system, that's exactly what killed my father. He had cancer, and they said, well, we're going to do chemotherapy with him. The very first course of chemotherapy they gave him, he lost consciousness, went into a coma, and never recovered from it. And he had an artificial heart valve. And they brought all these doctors and interns in to come see what was happening. He had this, something was happening with like an accumulative infection or something that was on this heart valve that he had. He had one that was mechanical. He had another one that was, he had two separate operations for that. Another one that was a pig valve. And I guess it was on the pig valve that they got this infection. I don't know. They might have seen something on the mechanical one. But they're all coming in and like, ooh, wow, and looking at this stuff. So he became an oddity for them. And yet it was their treatment that basically took down his immune system. And he never had that before. He never had any kind of a heart infection. And so we see this over and over again. You just look at antibiotics, for example. Antibiotics had a catastrophic effect on my mother, gave her a stroke. As I started looking into antibiotics, it says it in the name. It's anti-life.
Right.
And so
it kills the good things in your body is just equally as it does supposedly the bad things, and that's what these things do. They're just blanket destruction of your immune system.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So education. People are perishing. because of a lack of knowledge. And that's one of the things I think that you've got at rncstore.com. And again, if people go to rncstore.com/night, as you see under John's name tag there, that will automatically apply the 10% discount on anything that you find there. But one of the things I really like that you've got there, besides B17 in both a pill form as well as natural apricot seeds, but you've got a wealth of information there, like that book, A World Without Cancer by Geoffrey Griffin. And we've talked about that before. And I interviewed Geoffrey Griffin and about that because I'd always known about his writings about the Federal Reserve System and politics and things like that, but I wasn't aware of that book that he wrote. Tell us a little bit about how he came to write that book.
Yeah, the interesting segue is that Geo Griffin is 95 years old this year, and he is holding his next Red Pill Expo in Las Vegas on the July 11th. And the whole idea of Red Pill Expo is to wake people up to the things we're talking about right here. Yeah. And he's 95, David. Yeah. He was on a fishing trip with my father in Oregon in the early 1970s when my dad was having great success treating patients with Laetrile, or B17 as people know it kind of normally now, or amygdalin is the other word. Mm-hmm. And it's all the same thing. Don't get confused. It's found in over 1,200 different foods. But my dad was having tremendous success. But as you can predict, he was having tremendous pushback. He was getting raided by the local FDA, local FDA and the local police force. The news media was covering him. Even though he was having nothing but successes, all of his patients were having great results. Over 6,000 of them in just 8 years he treated successfully. And I can define successfully a whole different bunch of ways. But the point of the matter is that he was on this fishing trip with Geo Griffin, and Ed had never heard of Laetrile or B17. He just wanted to fish. He just wanted to go have a good time with his buddy, Dr. Richardson. And he says in his book that that discussion, my dad's overwhelming excitement about having this successful treatment for cancer that was natural, that changed Ed's life forever. And Ed will tell people, says it's the second most, the thing that changed his life was meeting my dad. The first most was going to a Communist Party meeting in Los Angeles when he was trying to do a report about, and he heard what their plan was for the United States, all of which, David, he says is now coming true in real time now. So Ed is a great. He's the OG, we call him, the original gangster of truth, and he's still telling that truth. And most people know him for Creature from Jekyll Island, which he wrote at my house as a kid. Right. But the reason why he got into the Federal Reserve in the first place is because when he was researching the book about, he called World Without Cancer, and about B17, and saying, who are these people that don't want us to know about this, David? Who are these? We always say them or they don't want us to know. And he traced it all the way back to the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, Bayer, traced it all the way back to the pharmaceutical companies. They, in the early 1920s, had a report written, the Flexner Report. And I'm not going to get too detailed with the audience today, but they had a report written that said all the natural ways of treating all disease are bad. Only ways that are good for treating people is these petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. And of course, who owns them all? The people that sponsored the Flexner Report. And so one by one, the universities that were teaching naturopaths or chiropractic or any natural medicine, they one by one were discredited, were taken out of business. And then universities like Yale and Harvard and Stanford and all these that were supported by the pharmaceutical companies, those were all the accredited hospitals where you would go to become a doctor. And now it's become basically all they know how to do is write prescriptions and cut things out of you and know how to bill. That's basically what medical schools, they may learn about the system, but they don't learn anything about the nutritional needs of your body or what these different things do. And they definitely don't learn about the harmful effects of combining multiple amounts of pharmaceuticals. So I digress. You asked, how did it start? Started on this fishing trip in Oregon, and is now the book sells more copies. That is equally as popular as Creature from Jekyll Island now, and it sells more copies in a week than Ed used to sell in a year. And so he struggles to keep it in print, but we continue to sell that book, and he's updated it 24 times, and so that book is an absolute. I've had hundreds of people tell me reading that book changed their lives because they got to see the science of cancer, the science of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the absence of nutrition that causes cancer, not the injection of these shots that destroy the immune system, allow cancer to develop.
Mm-hmm.
It's the absence of those. But why don't we know about it? It's because the second half of the book, called World Without Cancer, is all about why the pharmaceuticals and the big medical system controls us. We're just dollar signs. We're just dollar
That's right.
signs. And once we go into the system, they don't want us to know about natural things that keep us from getting disease. And so that's the story of how World Without Cancer started. And I've been telling that story for 30 years. And now, David, we are creeping into the areas that we never thought we'd get into. I've got hospitals interested in New York. I've got a hospital interested in hearing about the Richardson method. I've got MDs across the country wanting to learn about the Richardson method. And it's nothing secret or hidden that we have. It's just the natural way to increase the body's immune system, to bring it up so that the body can fight off these diseases, including heart disease, David. One of the biggest things that Laetrile and B17 help with is heart disease. And that's the number 1 and 2 killers in our country is heart disease and then cancer.
Yeah,
and these are both, so B17 and Laetrile, amygdalin, whatever you want to call it, found naturally in 1,200 different foods, has been hated by the pharmaceutical companies for 50 years. And even though their hatred is still there, they're unable to keep it covered up like they used to because of social media, because of great individuals like you that are willing to put me on in spite of the censorship that most likely you're going to receive if this goes on YouTube. I'm sure you're not on YouTube, or if you are, it's every other word is bleeped.
Yeah, well, I think really the mask came off when the masks went on, didn't it, back in 2020? And I think people realized there was a real hidden agenda there, and it wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was a real conspiracy. And when we talk about cancer, it's that political cancer you're talking about. The people behind all this stuff, that is one of the worst cancers out there. And, of course, the way that we get around all this is with knowledge. The knowledge is going to set people free, I think, free of this system if they understand what it's truly about. And it's been such a disappointment to watch this. I never really bought into the idea they're going to make America healthy again, the MAHA thing. I said from the very beginning I thought it was a ha-ha. And now we see what the Trump administration is doing in terms of embracing glyphosate and fluoride and all the rest of the stuff. They've not only have taken away liability, but they've actually incentivized it and subsidized it in a way that it never was there before. I mean, they've gone in exactly the opposite direction, haven't they, John?
Well, they truly have. Now, I'm very involved in the MAHA movement, and I'm not going to sit here and go that President Trump. I'm discouraged about a lot of the things that are going on with President Trump. So I'm not going to sit on here and sing his praises by any stretch of the imagination. But one of the things he did do was bring an RFK and a group of people that I am associated with that are doing their best to do a good job. But when it comes down to it, Trump would rather do business with a billionaire than he would with somebody like me, as an example. He would probably look down on me that I'm not as successful as the billionaire head of Pfizer or the billionaire head of Microsoft. That's unfortunate. Trump is, very money motivated. And we're seeing that in the second half of this first 2 years. And I hate to be the guy because it does turn friends off. Like, well, what would you rather have, Kamala Harris? Absolutely not. But, just because I don't want to eat, old food doesn't mean I want to eat manure either. I would choose to not eat in some cases like that. So right now, what's going on? But the MAHA movement, I still meet weekly with a lot of the top people in MAHA, and we still are making strides in spite of the administration's love of Pfizer and injections and talking about cancer vaccines. These are all just big money, big profit ways to keep us under control. But there is lots of people, really, and I can start naming names: Leanna Warner Gray, Trump's ex-wife, Marla Maples, Dr. Ed Group, there's a lot of people that are still on the Make America Healthy Again bandwagon that are fighting. We're fighting every day, and I'm fighting every day, David. I would associate far more with the Make America Healthy Again movement than I do the MAGA movement right now. I don't know if you saw the celebration on the lawn of the White House, the 250-year celebration. It was crickets. They opened this pavilion there, and no one's there because the MAGA movement has collapsed. Because what you and I haven't changed, David. We haven't changed in this situation. So the unfortunately, if you're going to remain healthy, you're not going to be able to listen to what the government tells you should be doing, because everything that our government's doing is about profit. They're pushing the GLP-1s even for obese kids.
Yeah.
I can tell you, we're going to have a massive surge predicted right here, and I'm not the only one. Massive surge of youth cancers with them injecting overweight kids that should be exercising and eating food that's not full of chemicals. They should be eating natural food. Instead, they're going to be government-sponsored GLP-1 shots to destroy their gut, to destroy their intestines, and we're going to have a massive increase in childhood cancers.
Well, we already do.
Colorectal cancers.
Yeah,
yes, we already do.
And they're looking at it and saying, what is this? Is it the difference in the food? And of course, there's been a lot of difference in the food. And, we look at glyphosate, going back years ago, that was, of course, a scheme by Monsanto to sell GMO seeds. We'll sell you the seeds, and only our seeds will grow after you poisoned the soil. And I remember over a decade ago talking about the mass suicides that were happening in India because they got these people to use glyphosate, and it poisoned their soil, and they couldn't grow anything else. And then they increased the price of the seeds, and it was taking these poor farmers, making them bankrupt. So a lot of them were committing suicide. A lot of them were committing suicide, and that's really the insidious ways that they move with this kind of stuff. But now we have, not only is it pervasive in our food supply, but they even, after they cut wheat, they spray the glyphosate directly on the wheat in order to dry it. I mean, that's how insane this is getting. And so the response to the Trump administration is that they're going to subsidize that and say that it is essential for our national security. And so he invoked the Defense Production Act against that. And Big Ag is another one of these large corporate interests that doesn't care at all about your safety or your health. They just want to sell quantities of food, just like the drug companies want to sell quantities of drugs. And so Big Ag is all about that as well, because that can get up their food production. Doesn't matter if it gives you cancer. Doesn't matter if it's harmful for you. They want to sell a lot of it, regardless.
Yeah, the whole gluten scam. I mean, gluten wasn't as poisonous as bad for us back 40 years ago when we were kids, like I say.
That's right.
Now it's gluten is basically filled with glyphosate. Anything that has gluten in it or wheat is filled with glyphosate. It's just, that's the way it is. And so you have to be conscientious about what you're eating as well. And so that's why, people go to the organic route, or they go to their local farmers market, or they go to natural grocers and try to at least, I always tell people, try to at least make the right choice 80% of the time. And so, yes, it's a multi-pronged approach for profit, for population control, for just control in general. The powers that be, David, your audience knows this, don't want us alive. They really like us. They really like us just to be, just to leave the planet. That's what the whole COVID thing, part of the COVID thing was getting rid of people that are in their 60s, for governments to stop supporting people that had put in all the work their whole life, developed this, this social security net, supposedly. And so those are the people that died in mass. Those are the people that were getting injected in homes. And so that plan is the same with our food production. And so I'm not going to sit here and go, it's all this horrible, conspiracy theory. It's financially motivated, and it's motivated to get rid of less people on the planet. They sit around like you and I are talking right now, talk about how wonderful the world will be if we have less people in it. Yeah. Let's get rid of another million people, and the world will be they actually, it's just like you and I talking about, making sure our lawns are green. Wouldn't it be a nicer world if our lawns are green? They're sitting around talking about, and so to them, it's I don't even know if the conspiracies are the
Georgia
right
Guidestone thing. Yeah,
right,
it really
right.
is.
It's just their way of looking at us is that we are, want to say goyim, or we're just, the people that are useless eaters. And I'm not, it's not, this is not an anti-Jewish statement either. It's the powers that be are centered around the Catholic Church up high in some cases, and the Jewish the Jewish mafia. But the average Jewish person, the average Catholic person, I'm here with a friend of mine, is a 40-year Catholic, goes to mass every day. He's not part of the deep state, but the Catholic Church is in many ways interested in population control and controlling us useless eaters. So
I guess they're selling us useless food.
Yes, and that's
useless food for useless eaters. There you go.
There you go. And so that's a little life hack I just heard from somebody several times, that if you buy food intended for the Jewish masses, it's usually healthier, and they have a little U symbol on it. I heard that recently. I don't know. So the rest of us
interesting. There was an article I came across, John, just the other day that was talking about the French, and it said, what is it about the French that they don't have the obesity problems that we do and things like that? And they said, well, part of it is that they have a very different food culture. They think a lot about food. They focus on it quite a bit. And they said they're focused on organic a lot. And here it's kind of a luxury item because people aren't looking at it in the same way. And so the junk stuff is mass produced and it's cheap. But you've got to kind of seek out anything else. And of course, the French, they said they'll go around to different stores. They'll get their meat over here, their fish over there, their bread over there. And they know where their food comes from. They know where it's sourced. I mean, it's like some fine gourmet restaurant where they tell you, we get our cheeses from this place, and this is what they do to their cattle. They have them, they're grain fed and all the rest of the stuff. They seek out the kinds of food, and they know the background of this food like a chef would at a fine restaurant, and they enjoy that. That's kind of it's part of their culture, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. We need to cultivate that culture so that we pay attention to our food, and even to the extent they said when they have a meal. They take the time to sit there and talk to other people. They take their time eating their food. They enjoy eating their food, and it's something of a ritual in a sense. There was a woman who was writing it, said she was French, and she moved to the UK, and she said, I couldn't believe that people were wolfing down their food while they were sitting at their workstation, their computer terminal. And she said that was just the strangest thing to see. They wouldn't even take time to sit down and deliberately have a meal. And I thought, that's really what we do. I mean, we go to the drive-through, we grab a hamburger, and we're eating it as we're driving down the road. We have such a different approach to it, and it's left us vulnerable to that. And I think it's just kind of a resetting of your mind, as you're pointing out. When people start to look at what they're eating and what they're putting into the body, we don't have to obsess about it. But it's something that we ought to be deliberate about, in the same way that the Amish are deliberate about what they do. The French are the same way in terms of food. We don't think a thing about it. Just, where can I get the fastest, easiest, cheapest stuff?
The Amish and other societies that have more primitive, let's call it primitive diets that aren't processed, all are healthier. The Hunzas, you've heard the story, the Hunzas of northern Pakistan live to be 130 years old. And they eat 200 apricot seeds a day, and they eat fruit that hasn't been sprayed with pesticides, and they breathe clean air, drink clean water. They're part of a social system that supports each other. You're right, David, and I'm seeing that. And I think in the what used, I don't know if we call this movement the patriot movement or the truth movement, or as Ed Griffin says, the collectivists against the individualists. That's how he breaks it up. The individualist movement or the patriot movement I'm seeing it moving towards localizing your food supply with friends and neighbors. You got the chickens, David. I got the cows. I'll get the milk. Fred's got the goats and the goat cheese, and we grow food organically without the pesticides, with seeds from seeds, what they call them anyway. The seeds, original seeds, not from Monsanto. I can't remember what the Heirloom. Thank you. Can't be an expert at all of it, but I'm seeing that movement I actually had a guy walk in to pick up his two twin daughters. My little daughter had a party over her house. He came in to pick up his two twin daughters, and we talked for 10 minutes. And he proudly announced he was a conspiracy theorist, 65-year-old man. But he said, I'm very successful in bringing communities together, finding 500 acres at some place and bringing in the plumber and the chiropractor and the architect and all these people together to be like a community, so that if and when our food supply runs out, we're prepared, and it's not costing us an arm and a leg. So I really see that movement in my time going across, not necessarily the prepping for the apocalypse movement, but just having a backup plan to where we can get good food and good clean water. We have the technology, David. We know how to do it, but we have become a society of fast food. Get it quick, surgery. Cut it out and go back to work. Put radiation in it, try to shrink the tumor, and then go back to work instead of slowing down, getting our body back right, eating the proper foods, and preparing in a way that is sustainable. That's what I see happening right now in our movement, because there's zero trust anymore in the top. I don't even see the left doesn't trust the top. The right doesn't trust the top. Those of us that just know the truth don't trust the top. So we've got to do it ourselves. We can't sit around and wait. We can still pay attention, but we're just waiting around for them to solve our problems, whether it's making us healthier or making us more financially secure. Is not working, David.
That's right.
And so we have to do it ourselves.
Well, people have put their trust in these kind of tribal politics, right? The Republican or Democrat or whatever, they're going to fix everything for me. And I don't know why people still look at that, but there's such a hardcore partisanship, tribalism that is out there. When in reality, what we need to be doing is, as you're pointing out, we need to be organizing locally and looking at ways that we can actually source things locally and have a community that is local, not some kind of a political tribe that we depend on, but people that live in our area that we can depend on, that we can provide a part of the solution and somebody else has another part, as you point out. That's really the approach of the future, because otherwise, if we go to this highly centralized top-down control mechanism, it is going to be a full-on dystopian totalitarian state. That's what they've designed for us. That's what they're implementing. When you look at the data centers, which are really surveillance centers, that is where this is all headed. And so whether you're talking about our health or whether you're talking about freedom, the way that we're going to get out of that, if we are able to escape that, it's going to be in terms of deliberately setting up a community. Now, I'm not an expert on what the Amish do, but I've always wondered why they did that. I don't know if there's a theological reason for it, but I do know that they said we have ruled out certain things because we don't want to be dependent on the outside. And so, they've adopted a simple, primitive lifestyle that is very heavily reliant on other people that are there, rather than systems that are distant and far away from them, that are big business and big government and big medicine. They do everything locally and internally, and that is by design. And so it doesn't have to be, I don't know if they've got some theological basis for that or what it is, why they desire to do that, but that has worked to their advantage. And that is going to be the only way that we're going to be able to stop this system that is coming at us, because it is very powerful, very technological, and very centralized. And so it's going to be, for decentralization to work, for us to be able to get away from that, we're going to have to adopt a different point of view in terms of our medicine and our food and our community. We should be community focused, not political party focused.
Amen. And that's what Ed Griffin's been preaching. We go back full circle to Ed Griffin. He's has the Red Pill Expo 95. I keep repeating that. Cancer free. Same with his wife, Pat. Just spoke to her 2 weeks ago. She's a wonderful woman, and used to make me eggs in the morning when I was a kid. When her husband was good friends with my dad. My dad would have been 104 now, and I think in the right circumstances, had they not gone after him, he might still be alive, because I see us, as you said, David, decentralizing, coming back to ourselves, teaching ourselves about our bodies and our health and our nutrition and the foods that we eat, as being a life gaining experience, meaning we're going to live longer, live happier. So whatever these guys do in these centralized things, I can let all the sheep go that way, but I'm going to surround myself with people like you and other people across the country. I'm stopping visiting people on this trip that I'm on right now, that are all preparing in a way, not like I said for the apocalypse, but just for this new situation where they're going to put us on minimum pay. We're going to have $2,000 or $3,000 a month to support. If you don't do that, and you don't take your shots, you don't take your GLP-1s, and you don't eat the manufactured food, you don't eat the bugs, you don't do all the things, it's all a control mechanism. And basically we're just slaves. We're pretty much slaves now. Most of us that, we pay into the IRS our whole lives, and then they kill us off with a COVID vaccine when we're ready to collect it back. But we can change that. We are changing that. That's the hopeful thing. And I hate to go back to, what I do, but it all begins with your health. If you have your health, they can't take that away from you. The best way to control you is financially, through the financial system, and then by your health. Those are the two best ways to control us. If we can break out of those two, we can get away with maybe not having power for a little while. We can get away with not having some other things for a little while. We might hate that we can't go to the movies, but if we have good food and we have our financial situation taken care of, where we're, investing in gold and silver or other tangible goods and things, if we can do those things and prepare, we can be ready for just about anything, as long as we can work with our community. So yes, get out there, make friends with other like-minded people in your area, within horse traveling distance, and get your health good. I don't know what's going to happen, David. I don't know. Every day I wake up and there's a new shocking thing going on. Something else that the administration has done. This new things from the Supreme Court. We're practically, I think I've heard, in 2027 we're merging our military with Israel.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, come on, we've been taken over. I mean, are we living in an absolute dystopia? I mean, all we can do is laugh and just continue to prepare.
Yeah, it's just so over the top. It's unbelievable. It's like I thought 2020 was peak insanity, but of course it just keeps going, doesn't it? Lock everybody down. You got to wear a mask if you go outside and all the rest of this stuff. But it just keeps on going. And so I think the answer is that we educate ourselves. We try to learn skills. We enjoy the journey. And so just as I was talking about the people in France, they get involved and they enjoy their food, and they make sure that this is a process that's actually good for them. But it isn't that they're doing it by the numbers and they've got this rigid schedule that they've got to obey that is like a tyranny over them. They're doing it because they enjoy the process. And so that's the key thing, is for us to be able to find some enjoyment in this and doing the things that we know are going to help us. And so in that regard, you have some great resources there at rncstore.com, and I highly recommend the products that are there, as well as the books that are there. And it's not just the book by G. Edward Griffin. You've got several different books that are there that people can explore, and they can find that online.
And this is what gives me hope, and I just want to tell this story as we kind of wrap up here. I've been going to these events, these patriot events, I'll call them all. Red Pill Expo, Reawaken America, Health Utah. And I ran into a lady a couple of years ago. Her name's Tina Blanco, and she owns a decentralized cellular company that kind of competes with some of the other AT&Ts and companies like that. So it's a really great cellular company. But she came up to me. She's an expert at that. And she said, John, I have thyroid cancer, and in 2 weeks I'm scheduled to have my thyroid removed. And this was a couple of years ago. And I said, Tina, I'd really, as a friend, as a person that's around you a lot, I'd really recommend you look into the method my dad used and avoid the surgery. You may still have to get it, but avoid the surgery until you try to treat it naturally, using the guidelines in my dad's book, Laetrile Case Histories. It's in the book what he used for all of his patients. He used the same kind of treatment. It's not complicated, but she did it, David. And I had no idea what the outcome was because I didn't stay in touch with her because, we meet a million people. Yeah. But I ran into her 3 weeks ago. And she said, John, I didn't do the surgery. I'm completely cancer-free. I'm telling the world. I'm telling Mike Adams. I'm telling everybody, because she advertised with Mike Adams. And she gave me permission to tell her story. Tina Blanco, she's out of San Diego and St. George, Utah. Very successful businesswoman. She's got patches that help take away pain. She's fighting this battle. But she said, John, you basically saved my life by telling me not to get this surgery to take my thyroid out, and now I'm healthy, happy, and I want to tell the world about it. That story, David, that's only 3 weeks ago I heard that story. We get those stories regularly when people just say, let me postpone what you're recommending, doctor. I'm not going to say no, because I don't want people to say no. I don't want to go to jail. I want people to say, let me think about it. Let me look at other ways. Let me look at some natural ways to help this. And maybe I can make these orthodox treatments a little less damaging to me, or maybe I can survive them, or maybe I don't even need them at all, because I can heal myself. And so again, I come down with a lot of bottom line things. I'm getting these stories regularly. I've got 50-year survival stories. People sent home to die. Rick Hill, 24, sent home to die, is 75 or 76 now. He's 42-year cancer survivor.
Yes, I interviewed him. He had a great story.
A woman out of my dad's book, 12-year-old woman who had leukemia. Everybody in her at Mayo Clinic died that was her age group. Within a year, she went, instead of going through the next year of the chemotherapy, she went out to my dad, was treated by him, and she's alive today, 65. Her name has slipped my mind. I can't stand it when that happens, but she's in my dad's book. She's one of the patients, 12 years old. She's 65 now, 5 grandchildren, 3 children. And she told me when I talked to her that she would, none of those people would even exist if it weren't for my father. Wow. And so these are not just once in a while stories, David. They're all the time, constantly, consistently, wonderful, great stories of natural healing, not some magical, mystical potion or some drug that has a whole bunch of side effects. This is in Genesis 1:29. God said we should have the seed for thy food, and all the things that are derived from that can help us cheaply, effectively, doesn't break our budget, and we can live a long, healthy, happy life, just avoiding the system that's out to kill us. That's out to kill us. Yeah,
it is. And so that book is Laetrile Case Histories by John Richardson. Is that correct? And people will find that. Griffin,
and you can buy that on our website as well. It's called Laetrile Case Histories, the Richardson Cancer Clinic Experience. They did put my dad
the protocol in there as well as the case histories, right?
Yes, it does. Yep. And it's the protocol is simply, the B15, the B17, and the pancreatic enzymes, and then getting off of some of the things that are bad, cigarettes and coffee and things like that, if you're fighting the battle against cancer, and trying to eat, obviously organic food. And it's a whole protocol. And doctors are using it all over.
Tell me about B15. Excuse me. Tell me about B15, because we talked a lot about B17, amygdalin.
Right, another one that is slighted, but Muhammad Ali used it to win the boxing title. There's books written about it. It's called pangamic acid, and it's a complex of nutrients found in the apricot seed and in brown rice and many other foods that helps the blood carry more oxygen. And helps the muscle tissues carry more oxygen as well. Oxygen is great for us. It's great for our activity levels, but it's also, cancer doesn't grow in oxygenated atmosphere. So it's an anaerobic, it grows in anaerobic state. So B15 is just another compound found in natural foods that my dad back in the 1970s and Krebs before that, Ernst Krebs before that in the 1920s, was using the combination of the oxygenator called B15 or pangamic acid, B17, the actual cancer killer, the mechanism that in the presence of a cancer cell, it's broken apart by beta-glucosidase. This is technical, but that's what actually kills the cancer before it metastasizes. And then the pancreatic enzymes are the enzymes that digest the slimy outer coating of the cancer or the tumor cell, or even animal proteins. That I could give a class on that for hours, which we are doing for MDs through Gold Care. For anybody that's taking notes for this show, we're doing that for MDs. And I've got MDs wanting to learn about my dad's method. That's just common sense most of the time, and it's being used by hundreds of doctors around the world, hundreds of doctors in the United States, thousands of doctors around the world. It's just simply, David, taking our immune system back to nature. And B15 is one of those compounds that's been cooked out of our diet. We don't eat brown rice. Well, we overcook it. By the time it's eat it, it's doesn't have the B15 anymore. Same thing with all of our vegetables that have these great nutrients in it. So, not only do we want to buy organic, but we don't want to overcook our food as well. Or we need a supplement, and we make it very simple on the website. You can buy the pro bundle or the prevention bundle, and it's less than $1 a day. It's designed for a 90-day supply. You can join it as a like on a subscription. You get it even cheaper, and that's what people are doing.
That's
and
great.
we're bringing back into the body the things that modern food, big ag is stripping out of our food. We're bringing it back into it.
That's great. Yeah. That's it's good that you've got some doctors that are interested in learning that. Unfortunately, most of the doctors that I've come across are very skeptical about anything. And if I ask them any questions about their drugs that they don't want to answer, it's like, oh, you've been talking to Dr. Google, have you? And it's like, well, yeah, one of us needs to be caring about this. Maybe if you don't care about it, maybe I should care about it. And I see that it's not only is it an apathy and not being interested. They don't even care to know what these different things, if it's something they haven't heard of. They just kind of brush it off. It's like, I've never heard of that. This is what you need from Pfizer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like a commercial or something,
We made it simple to grow this, and we're getting doctors excited about it. We made a website called b17works.com. Rick Hill, you fill out a little form. Rick Hill will call you back and point out doctors in different areas. There's many of which are protected by private medical associations, PMAs, which anybody that knows about that, so that they don't have to be worried about the government coming in and coming attacking them. They have their patients join a private medical association. So the freedom to tell this truth is much better in that situation. But b17works.com, we don't sell you anything. We're not charging anything. Rick will help point out doctors that are doing it across the country, so people can help find people. Yeah,
that's great.
So
isn't it interesting that we have to create associations like a private medical association, or you have to, if you want to have grain-fed beef that is slaughtered locally instead of being sent off to the big processing plants, you got to join a club, right? Or if you want to have raw milk, you got to create a club and join a club. It's almost like we got to secede from this government in order to have any freedom and choice about our food, or medicine. It's crazy, isn't it?
You mentioned the Amish. They're getting sued by the government for selling raw milk, and nothing's ever happened bad. But so they've had to develop these systems where you buy 1/16 of a goat, and now you own that goat, and now you get 1/16 of the milk produced from that goat or that cow or whatever. It's a way around it, and that's what we're going to have to do, David. We're going to have to keep doing that locally so we can not be afraid of the Gestapo coming in and arresting us for drinking, raw milk. That's just it's purely ridiculous, but it does show you that we're over the target, and we got to keep going that path. So the private medical associations, the even things with law, legal, and land ownership, we could go down a lot of paths, but it's about taking it back to the local community and doing what's best for us and our family, and not caring what the government says we have to do.
That's right. Yeah, it's like a small secession that we have going on, and so you create your own private milk group, your own private meat group, your own private healthcare group,
vegetables,
all of it. So
Your Standard. Another name I'll drop is Your Standard. I don't have any deal with them or anything, but they're a big organic food company that delivers to communities all over the world. If anybody's looking, all over the United States, they drop ship organic food their whole idea is to bring organic food the same price as you're getting at the grocery store. So I know the CEO, and they're doing tremendous work. Lots of companies and people are filling this niche of getting us good food, and like you said, joining clubs so we can get the food that we really need.
And that's one of the things they said in that article about France. They said because people were focused on the local food growers and because they were focused on organic food, it wasn't the big differential that we see here in the United States where you have to pay a premium for it. They didn't have to pay a premium for it because they were interested in it. There was the market adapted to that. So, well, thank you, John. It's always great talking to you. I'm glad that you're doing much better, and it's yet another case history that could be added to your dad's book, I guess. Get you put in the appendix of it as you kept your appendix. And everything
exactly.
else.
I didn't have to remove it, even though I was recommended to. Yeah, I've got all my body parts.
Great, that's good. So people need whole foods and they need whole bodies, and you've got the information and the products to help them with that. at rncstore.com. Thank you so much. And I'll just say it again, shameless self-promotion. If you go there, you get 10% off if you use the code NIGHT. So it helps you, it helps us as well with the program. So thank you so much, John, for all the help that you have been to so many people, the information as well as the products. It's great to have that resource there, and I hope people support you so we can continue to have that resource. Thank you so much.
All right. God bless, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah, thank you. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. thedavidknightshow.com.